I am Indian. My husband is Bengali. The language is entirely different. My mom had a big concern with the language. How am I going to adapt to that? The food, which is a little bit different. When I first got married, it was very difficult. It was challenging at first because I think my mother-in-law, all she would do is speak Bangla. And it was very difficult for me because I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but she was very persistent.
Hey everyone, welcome to Spill the Chai. I'm Nazia.
And I'm Soniya.
Today we're going to talk about interracial marriages and how that's helped shape us to be who we are, what that means to us, and how we plan on raising our children.
Yeah, I want to say both Nazia and I have experienced this firsthand. She comes from an interracial marriage, and I have a somewhat interracial marriage, and we wanted to kind of share our experience and what it looks like for our children growing up,
Yes.
the things we've gone through, the things we've adjusted, and all of our lessons learned. So let's start with Nazia. Tell me, when you were together, I know you're a single mom now, but when you were together, how did you navigate the interracialness and going out and about and just living together and blending cultures together? And, just I want to hear it all.
Yeah, it's a good topic to talk about. So I'll first start by sharing. So my ex-husband, he is African-American, so he's Black American. And I'm Bengali, so I'm from Bangladesh. I was born there, came here when I was quite young, but grew up here in the U.S., So when I think about, the integration of cultures, I became so Americanized by living in the U.S. for most of my life. I thought it was pretty normal, and I didn't think anything of it from a societal standpoint. This whole Desi culture or being a Muslim, I didn't think anything of it that my ex-husband was a different race. I never looked at race in that aspect.
Right, and you were in love, so.
Yeah, and I think it was also a sense of, whether or not our values aligned. My ex and I, we had a few things that were very similar and in common. And it had nothing to do with our race. It had nothing to do with our culture, upbringing. And not to talk too much about, my children's father, but I would say he came from a very traditional and conservative family. They were, in the terms of being conservative, they had certain values in their family where they really, really appreciated a sense of belongingness within their community, but also from their family aspect. They were very close. His mom and dad are very close with their siblings, and I looked at that as a reflection of how
family
I am
values.
With my family.
Yeah,
I think
values.
Absolutely, and family values is so important,
right.
Especially when we think about how to raise our children. I think another aspect, even though we have totally two different backgrounds, right? So again, he's Black American, I'm Bengali-American. I also did not know much about my culture. So the shift in who I started becoming was much later. I started learning more about my culture. Ironically, I started learning more about the deen too, which happened much later in life, which was around my 30s, right? And when he and I got married, I was late 20s, and I was still learning about myself, and I thought I found my best friend. I found someone that we had so many things in common, but I didn't think about the long term, right? And when I say that, I knew how we wanted to raise our children. Fundamentally, my ex and I, we definitely have the same understanding and the same path as far as how we want to cultivate a sense of identity, but also a sense of knowing that they come from two different backgrounds. So what I mean by that is, having the Black history heritage and then also knowing the Bengali roots is so critical for my children, because they're, mashallah, they're beautiful. They're 10 and 4. They're lovely kids, well-mannered, alhamdulillah. And they have two different identities, right, as far as culture. So for me and my ex, we try to reinforce awareness, but exposure to both sides, right? So, luckily they get to learn about Black history through schooling, which really helps, right? I love it when even my 4.5-year-old, she knows who Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is, which I think is pretty powerful.
That's awesome, yeah.
And I think it's just from school, right? Yeah. And also, for me, one thing that I have done, I try to be as diligent as possible, especially with my eldest as she's growing up, is tying back the roots of where her father is from and where I'm from, which is around just good character. Like, do we have good character? Are we building the good deeds? And are we creating future leaders and future humanitarians in our generation for them to come, right? So I think about those ways of like integrating our culture, but also seeing how that's going to help value them like in the future.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about you. So I know you mentioned that you're from an interracial marriage as well. So I will first and foremost say, pardon my ignorance, I would have thought, see, this is how Americanized I am. I would have thought if somebody who is Bengali, Indian, or Pakistani, they are all part of the Desi, global area, right? Like that's all part of who we are in the brown society.
Yep.
Now, I did not know. So your background, you are from?
So I am Indian. My husband is Bengali. So what you said is it's not wrong. It is. We're all a part of the same subcontinent. But where the difference lies is, a lot of people don't realize that the culture is very similar but very different as well. The language is entirely different.
That's the only thing I thought was different was
the language. And I think it might not just even be culture. I think it might just be even traditions that you grew up with, right? Even if it's two Indians getting married together, the way you've been brought up and the way you've been raised, and then like when you get married,
values.
Yeah, you have differences, right? But in ours, I think I remember when I was first getting married, my mom had a big concern with like, the language, how am I going to adapt to that? The food, which is a little bit different, not too much, but they do have their own types of foods that they like. Some of the other things are just more traditions, and in terms of when you're out in public, and I think the core values are still there because our faith, alhamdulillah, is the same. We're both still Muslim, so we're very rooted in faith in that sense. But when it comes to culture and in terms of how we show up in society and with each other's families and just how we were raised, there are some core differences there. My kids do see it whenever we're with his side of the family versus my side of the family. It's just very different. And I think it's, when I think about it, it's more about how we grew up, right? So,
and just so for our viewers, when they're watching, you live with your in-laws.
I do.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is amazing. And, society-wise, like, it's not that common to hear that. And we're pretty young. So, mashallah, like, I'm so impressed that you have embraced that. And so they're Bengali, your in-laws.
Yes.
So they speak the language at home.
They speak Bangla,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
And I think that's where my side kind of rooted from, because everybody in my community, once you get married, you do live with the in-laws, and I think that's where it's rooted in me and knowing that that's how it is. And of course, from me, my upbringing, it's something I've always wanted to do is take care of my mom. Now she's no longer here, so it's like I want to take care of my in-laws, right? So that's where it came from. But
love that.
I will say that when I first got married, it was very difficult because I think my in-laws were, of course, anybody is very proud of where they're from. They really wanted me to learn the language. They really wanted me to like embrace the culture, which, alhamdulillah, I have. But it was challenging at first because I think my mother-in-law, all she would do is speak Bangla. And it was very difficult for me because I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but she was very persistent. And I will say, it was very good that she did that because now I fully understand it, right? I don't speak it, but
and Auntie speaks English too.
She speaks English too, but she's more comfortable like in her own native language. So both my father-in-law and mother-in-law speak fluent Bangla with me, and I always respond in English. So her persistence got me to really embrace the culture a little bit more.
Nice.
And a lot of people are shocked that I understand what they're saying whenever we're in another society or like not in a gathering together. So I catch on to conversations and they're just like, wait, you understood what I was saying? I'm like, yeah.
That's so amazing. And you speak Hindi as well?
I understand it because I grew up with Bollywood movies. So that's like the Hindi, the Urdu, I'll understand it fully. But if I try to speak it just because I don't have practice with it, it's the same thing with Bangla. If I try to speak it, I don't have practice with it. So I will mumble. But the same thing with my kids, right? They fully understand Bangla. For me, I speak Gujarati in my home.
Okay.
So for me, it was always like something I wanted to teach them, but because I don't have enough people around me that can speak it with them, I ended up resorting in English with them anyway. So they have a few words of Gujarati. I think if my mom was here, it'd be a little bit different because they would see her on the daily and like learn it that way.
Right.
But yeah, at least they have the knowledge of understanding it, which I'm grateful for. I'm trying to get them into the whole Bollywood scene too, to understand Hindi and Urdu as well. But Yeah, we're growing up, they're seeing two different sides. Like when we're out in the Bengali culture, they see the whole culture and the traditions and everything that's not, I don't want to say expectations, but the hospitality and how we want to treat each other, right? And then when we're at my side of the family and the community, they see how everybody's involved in helping each other. So they're exposed to all that as well, which
and being in that environment helps, of course.
Yeah, and I love that they've gotten a take of both worlds. They've got friends in both communities, and just growing up, I want them to know that they're open to whoever they want as long as our faith comes first, right? So whoever their partner is, whoever their friends are, I don't want their morals or what their character or anything to diminish away from how they've been brought up, right? And I'm sure you have the same thing with your kids.
So I love that you touched on that, if I may. So it's so crazy. So our daughters are about the same age, right? So your eldest is 9, my eldest is 10, and then our youngest are similar in age too. And it's funny because when I talk about partnership and I talk about husband and wife and I talk about, and this is to my eldest generally, but I'll bring up the topic of like, you know, what a wife's figure is, and then I'll talk about like the next level of like a father and then a mother, right? And it's so interesting because my eldest will ask me these like out of the box questions. Like she'll ask like, so am I supposed to marry someone who is only just this race, meaning like, you know, somebody who's black because dad is black? Yeah, exactly. So, and the beauty is, and I don't know what the conversation is like this with her father, but I'm pretty sure like he's pretty open to it as well. He comes from a very open-minded family too. They embrace all cultures, which is really nice. So it's interesting because that's the same thing that I also try to like help elevate for my daughter to understand that, hey, it does not matter about the race at all, right? And I know that there's going to be topics in society, and you know, it's a blessing too, because I feel like the world has changed so much. I remember 10, 15 years ago, we would say, you know, it's going to look like a melting pot, and it literally is a melting pot, right? Like we are so mixed in our cultures and traditions. But to your point, I think one of the most important things that you can hold on to is traditional values, right? Like what are you rooted in? Where do you come from? And having those fundamentals really does help to create a foundation for our children, but it also helps to pave the way for what their future generations could potentially look like as well. So I remember, I'm going to share a quick story. So I remember my ex and I, so we're in the South, okay? I remember when he and I think we were married like less than a year, and we were going to the grocery store. And this is before I started wearing the hijab, so I had my hair out. I dressed pretty, you know, Americanized, you know, just Western clothes. And we're both at the shopping area, right? We're about to get checked out, and he's putting things from the cart, he's putting them into the little belt. And I'm right behind him, and I'm helping too. I'm putting things aside. And right when we got to the cashier, she just looked at both of us. I'll never forget this. And this, I won't even say the name of the the place that we were shopping at. But when we went there, she just looked at us in awe, and she just said, "Hey, is she with you?" And I felt it's strange because we're in the South. You know, we hear about racial profiling, we hear about prejudice, like we hear about these scenarios. And imagine us, a newlywed couple. Definitely, we were less than a year in, and it was just such an uncomfortable moment. And luckily, at that time, my ex, you know, he stood up for me, but you know, he kind of like chuckled it off. I did not feel any type of humor in that moment. In that moment, I felt very like little. I felt very belittled, but I felt like shrunken in who I am. And I think in that moment is when I realized, oh my God, like. He looks different than me, and I look different from him. Right. Because I just I didn't grow up that way, right? Like, alhamdulillah, like my family brought us up with very, like, open-minded, you know, ways of living. And I remember in that moment thinking, like, wow, this is going to be interesting. Imagine if I was with my child, like, if we had kids, how would people, I never thought about, like, how people are going to perceive us, you know? So in just, like, these simple little moments, it does bring clarity. In hindsight, I wish I would have discussed it a little bit further with my ex to say, hey, you know, I felt uncomfortable, like maybe we could have done this, and he didn't handle it incorrectly, but I also didn't speak up. Right. So it was a good little lesson learned for me in that time.
I'm very curious, like what would you have done differently if you wished you could have gone back and know what you know now, like, you know, feel very differently? Do you feel like you had like some kind of answer to give back to her?
I don't know if it would have been an answer, more so because he already spoke for us, which I appreciate. I think it was more of my body language and, you know,
Is
the
that
saying, like, killing them
uncomfortableness?
with kindness. Yeah, like, I wish I would have been more confident in who I was, even being married to someone, right? Halal and whatnot. But I wish I would have looked at that lady and just said, yeah, we're together, and just
Yeah.
kind of like joked it off. But I didn't even do that. I was literally in just shock, like, how on earth is she asking this question?
So I'm curious now though. Do you get that with your kids now?
Great question. So, okay, so my clothing line and my other business, my consulting business, is called Modest Shades.
love it.
I don't know if I've ever shared the story behind Modest Shades, but I'll just share it briefly. I was giving a bath to my girls, my eldest and my youngest, and mashallah, like the three of our skin tones are so different and they're so beautiful. In fact, like if you add their father into it, it's 4 different skin tones,
Wow.
right? So there's a double meaning behind Modest Shades. But when I was giving it back to my girls, I remember just saying to them, saying like, you know, mommy's trying to think of a different name for her business. And I want it to be around modesty, but I don't know what to call it. And my girls, you know, we were taking a bath and all of a sudden the girl said, but you know, mommy, we're different shades. It was my little one
I love
who
that.
first
You
said
didn't
it.
share that part with me before.
It was my little one who said it. So it was Amira. She said, you know, we're different colors. We're different shades.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we are different shades. And then Olivia is the one who said, yeah, modest shades, like
love
modest
it.
shades. So
I love it.
I feel like it was like meant to be.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that for me, for the businesses was, you know what? It's also our different levels of growing into who we are, right? There are different shades of, and it's different levels of whether it's your iman, whether it's your level of like, you know, like spirituality, but your level of growth and self-development as a person, mother, etc.
all the layers,
So
yeah.
so that's how Modest Shades came about.
I love
And
it.
so to answer your question, yes, and I'm actually going to give you another scenario. This is when I went to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Y'all ready for this?
Was this your recent one?
So I only had one child at this point. So Olivia was 3 years old, and my eldest has this beautiful, thick hair, and it's mixed hair, right? So she's got like thin hair from me, but she has her father's like much thicker curls, right?
it.
So her curls are very tight. But we went to Bangladesh, and by the way, like my youngest has hair that's totally different,
Yeah.
totally different texture. Her hair is it's thin as well, but it's not as tight in curls, so it's a little bit looser in curls. It's almost like Puerto Rican
Wow.
like hair, kind of, right? So
So much beauty, like variety of
Alhamdulillah.
beauty, right? Alhamdulillah.
thank you so much. Yeah. So, but they look different, right? So their skin tones. My youngest has darker skin tone. She looks like her father, but she has hair like me. Then my eldest has somewhat my skin tone, but she has hair like her father. So when we went to Bangladesh for the second time, actually, this is the second time I took my eldest. When I took her, like her hair is growing now, right? She's 3. It's
Yeah.
so much longer, and mashallah, it's so thick. And I always say to her, like, good God, I wish I had your hair, like the thickness. So when I took her to Bangladesh, we were shopping, and it was at a grocery store. And I'm just going to be brutally upfront about this. I'm Bengali-American, born in Bangladesh, but I grew up here in the US. So I'm very Americanized, yet I have my roots very close to my heart. But going to Bangladesh,
Oh, they can tell.
yeah,
They
going
can
to
tell
Bangladesh like
instantly.
7-8 years ago,
Yeah.
I was genuinely I was appalled. Like there was an auntie who did not just look at my daughter. She came up and she touched my daughter's hair.
Oh, wow.
Let me tell you guys,
man.
you know, there's a level of like respect, right? Like being women, being mothers, being Muslim, non-Muslim, it doesn't matter. But
But it's very different.
personal
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
like you're touching my child's
Yeah.
hair, not her clothing, but her hair. So I was highly offended in that moment. And I remember looking at that auntie, and you could tell like she had no, she
intent.
had no
Yeah.
ill intent whatsoever, but she's genuinely curious. And she like legitimately touched my daughter's hair.
Yeah.
And my baby, like she didn't understand. I actually had her in the shopping cart,
Yeah.
but the lady like touched it, and you could tell like she touched like to feel the texture.
Right. She's like twirling it around or something.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? And I did gently remove her hand, and I said, and I said it in Bangla, like, apne ki kortesen, like,
Yeah.
apne,
What
you
are
know,
you
ki
doing?
oshubida, yeah. And she just said, like, oh, is this your child? And again, I'm trying to have self-awareness.
Yeah.
In that moment, my emotions were very high, but I had to
Okay.
remove myself because I'm with my daughter too. I had to be classy. And I said, yes, she's my daughter. That's why she's in my cart, and this is why I'm pushing her. I'm trying to purchase something. Is there something that I can help you with? And I said it in the most polite
Yeah.
way. But by the time I got home and I told my mom,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a different story. You know,
Yeah.
I think for me personally, to feel that type of discrimination / like curiosity
Right.
from
You're not
my own people.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't even think that would even exist. And again, once again, I was a bit naive, right? I'm thinking, oh, the world is the same. Everybody has, similar views. It's kumbaya. People don't see color that much. No, it was very different when I went to Bangladesh. Like, we're not, in my country, we're not exposed to other
They're
races
not used
as
to
often.
that, right? Because you're predominantly Bengali in that. So to see someone who's a little bit different, the curiosity peaks, right? So, I mean, I'm sure at 3, she didn't, like, Olivia's not going to understand that.
No.
Have they experienced anything, like, now at a more mature level?
Great question. Luckily, nothing that's racial related, right? But I think, like, bullying will be a different topic one day for all of us.
Yep.
Yeah. I will say, I think if you were to ask my daughter today, like, especially my eldest, if she has any concerns with, like, the color of her skin or like her friendship circle, she would tell you she is very confident. Like, I feel so blessed to say that. She is fiercely a very feminine girl. She definitely has haya, mashallah. She can be shy, but once you get to know her, she is like she's a complete bubble. Like, she's very bubbly, but she's very confident. So luckily we have not experienced anything like that. And we have open discussions. Her father does as well with her too. So again, it's bringing back to her identity, knowing who she is, and feeling a sense of proud.
I think it's such a big difference in terms of how a mother and a father is educating them and raising them, and the fact that she's confident is a testament of how both of you are raising her, right?
Thank you.
She's got that. I think it's so important, and I think seeing that, okay, my mom and dad are different, but they made it work. I'm gonna make it work in this world too, right? And it speaks volumes to have that confidence.
Even though we have 2 separate households, he operates totally different from how I operate. So,
but again, like you said, you're rooted in who you are, the character and the morale and everything that you're raising your kids in. That's what, even though you might have 2 different views in 2 different households, but that core is still there in terms of how you're raising your kids.
Thanks,
which is so important. And you can see it. I mean, I love them.
I appreciate it. They love you too. Yeah. So tell me, okay, I've got a question. So your daughters are half Bengali and half Indian. And pardon me, because I made this mistake. So Gujarati, you speak Gujarati, and then Bangla.
Yes.
Have they picked up? I know you slightly discussed it, that they picked up on a couple of words, but like, is there, like, does your husband want them to learn Bangla more? Or like, what does that discussion look like?
No, thankfully, alhamdulillah, my husband's very, very open. He's very, like, he and I are on the same page in terms of we want them to learn everything and anything. I mean, heck, we're like super involved with like East Asian cultures. Like, we're so, like, culture and like race is not an issue with us at all. We want to be exposed to everything. Like, we travel the world just to make sure that they're exposed to these things. True. So he's not like, oh, they should be doing this and this. Like, he comes with me to like family events and stuff, and he makes an effort with like everybody, even people who that it's not family, that people are just there at the, he communicates with them. So I love cool. that we both have this kind of understanding. Like, even if I'm at events that's from his family side or cultural side, I mingle with everybody. Like, alhamdulillah, like, we're a good melted pot of a family. And my in-laws are the same too. If they're at an event with like, that's, in my community, they get along with everybody. Even though they don't speak the same language, they do like broken Hindi with each other, whatever it is, whatever common ground they have, like, alhamdulillah, like, the family is amazing, right? And then my family is very nurturing and caring and accepting as well. So I think we're blessed in that sense that when you have both sides of the family that get along, it makes it a lot easier. And then that love is what our kids see, right? And then like, hey, it is easy. Like, I don't know that my kids really perceive that there's a difference yet, Very good. I think my kids, when they see me and my community and I'm speaking Gujarati, that's where they're kind of a little confused, like, what is mom saying? So I can see that my eldest is starting to ask questions now. But I do play around with them with some like Gujarati words here and there, and like they catch up, but it's just so funny to hear them say it back to me because it's so butchered.
But it's like, you could tell that they're trying.
They are. It's funny. Like, last night, even Nia was just trying to say things and she was just butchering it so much. I'm like, this is how we say it. And she's like, okay. She tried it again and she's got like this thick English accent on it. And I'm like, okay. I love it. It's so cute.
Sweet. Though they're, oh my God, your daughters, I love them so much too. They're so much, they're such sweet girls and so well behaved.
Thank you.
I think like the way that you and your husband and your in-laws, like the way that you all continue to cultivate that that love, like that's beyond, like it makes me think about like my mom. It makes me miss my mom a lot more too. But I'm so proud of like the way that you are bringing them up in a Western society, right? They go to public school, but you still teach them like Quran lessons. And, you know, from the time that I've known you from afar, I've always seen them like, you know, for Eid, for Ramadan, like they're dressed up in traditional clothes.
That's
like it's
very important to me.
Yeah. So how have you helped to embrace heritage culture in that interracial marriage?
So for me, like growing up, even though like I was born and raised in America, right? But my mom never ever had me forget my roots and my culture. Like I'm still, I'll be sleeping on the floor if I need to. I'll be sitting on the floor to eat my meals. I'll eat with my hands. Like,
now hold on, why would you be sleeping on the floor? What does that really mean?
I mean, for us, it's just like when we have get-togethers, like literally we would put down blankets on the floor and there's 20 of us in a line sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's just kind of like, you know, I think
we do.
Yeah, I think it's like a modern day sleeping bag, but literally it was just like comforters layered onto each other, and it's like this huge, massive sleepover party, and that's what we did. Like, we didn't feel the need to have a bed and a mattress for comfort,
because it's about it's about like the closeness, right? Like having that quality time together, which is so precious.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a part of the culture, right? And then going back to like the foods we eat, the events we go to, the way, like the clothes was like very important to me. Like it still is, like, and they love dressing up, like, because I have so much of my mom's.
So adorable, mashallah. You've got them. I've seen them in like small little churis, like these little bangles.
Yes.
So cute.
So I have like a bunch of jewelry that I've inherited from my mom, because my mom was like this big fashionista, right? So she's got the clothes, the jewelry, the shoes, everything. And my eldest recently, because my mom had very tiny feet, so my mom had some heels that I had kept, and my eldest was so excited that her feet are finally fitting into those shoes. So she loves that, the jewelry, so I will be just like in my closet, and my kids will be putting on everything and doing like a fashion show. But I make sure, like, if there's ever since they were kids, like even when they're babies, like we went to weddings, they dressed up. It didn't matter like if it was their sleep time or whatever. It was that constant exposure. When we're in the car, all we listen to is Desi songs, and they love like jamming out to Desi songs. Now they're actually into East Asian, like the K-pop songs too.
I love it. So are mine.
Yeah.
If I hear, and like my little one doesn't say demon. Is it
it's
K-pop
not even the
Demon
movie.
Hunters?
These are just like other K-pop bands that they're listening to, that they're into.
Wow.
So when it comes to that, like and then during Ramadan, they love like dressing up. For Eid, they love dressing up. This is why I'm trying to get back into Bollywood too, so that way they're exposed to like just traditions. I mean, they're used to it with what we do, but you know, me growing up seeing like the Bollywood movie and what the new highlight of the outfits were, like that's what was inspired in terms of the new Indian outfit to be wearing.
I love it.
But just constantly exposing them, because they're naturally exposed to the American world, right? And via TV, at school, whatever it is, they're naturally exposed to it. So how do I keep them rooted and grounded? And that's
So
because
important.
I'm constantly trying to make sure that in the home, we're in our culture, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what it is, even if we're invited to you always have an option to say yes or no. But for me, I always try to say yes as much as possible. If I'm invited somewhere, I take them with me. They get to meet new friends, new people. They're exposed to different customs and different traditions. You meet somebody, an elder, you make sure you say Assalamu alaikum to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, the more they're exposed to it, the more they're going to have it in them that this is who I am.
I love that. It's so beautiful. You know, we'll wrap up today, but I wanted to also mention, you know, I've also been seeing some amazing stories of so we've got our stories of interracial marriages. However, like I've also seen some beautiful stories recently. Like I saw a Bengali woman with a Palestinian man recently married. Then I actually know a couple here in Atlanta. I'm not going to say the name, but she's Moroccan and he's Bengali. So like you're starting to see some, mashallah, like you're starting to see like Desi, right? Like the brown community also integrating into the Arab community, which I absolutely love, because that's the beauty of our faith, right? In Islam, we don't see any type of, I shouldn't say we don't, it's society does, but we as like the good people who genuinely care about the goodness of people, like we don't see color as a barrier to love or to marriage or to build a family, right? Like I'll also mention this, my cousin married, she is Australian, mashallah. She reverted to Islam. They have a wonderful, beautiful marriage, mashallah, mashallah. My brother married someone who's Indian. My sister married somebody who was a revert. I married somebody who was Black American. So it's like we have so many beautiful, interracial marriages that happen in our family, but I've also been witnessing a lot more too. Granted, it wasn't as popular when me and my ex got married 16 years ago, but
I'm so glad
nice
that it's opening up, right? And I even know, like, as you're saying, so many couples that are even outside of the Arab world where there's those, interracial marriages, and just the beauty of how they get along and how they raise their kids, and they're still fully, deeply rooted in their faith and just their upbringing. It's so beautiful to see different cultures embracing each other. And just the husband embracing all the traditions of the wife. And that's what you need,
each
right?
other.
And that's the biggest thing in a marriage, is if the partnership is there.
Absolutely,
that's the biggest thing. That's going to drive a successful marriage in this.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that's going to be our next episode. So stay tuned. We hope to hear from you all soon, and we'll check you guys out later.